There comes a moment, after all the tears, all the explanations, all the overthinking, when something in you quietly breaks. You stop begging to be understood. You stop chasing texts that never come. You stop explaining your worth to people who were never ready to see it. And for the first time, silence feels more peaceful than connection. That moment, that's not coldness. That's not ego. That's emotional detachment. The quiet rebellion of a mind that's finally had enough. Most people think detachment means not caring, but that's a lie. Real detachment is when you've cared so deeply, so sincerely, and so long that your system literally cannot take one more heartbreak and it shuts down to protect you. It's not you being heartless. It's your brain saying, I need to survive. Before we dive deep, pause for a second and hit subscribe, because here we don't talk about emotions to glorify pain. We talk about them to understand it. This channel is your mirror, your psychology decoded, your emotional growth in real time. And if you've ever loved someone so much that it broke you, then this video will explain everything you were never able to put into words. So stay with me till the end, because we're not just talking about how to let go of someone. We're talking about how to take your power back, scientifically, psychologically, and soulfully. Let's start with the truth. Your brain is not built for constant emotional chaos. It's designed for connection, but also for balance. Every time you fall for someone, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical released when you win, achieve, or experience pleasure. You feel excitement, obsession, and attachment. It's intoxicating, like a drug. But when that connection starts to fade, when you're ignored, betrayed, or invalidated, that same dopamine system collapses, and your brain, desperate to restore balance, begins to detach. In neuroscience, this process is called emotional regulation through suppression, a self-defense mechanism where the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, overrides the emotional centers, like the amygdala, to protect you from pain. That's why one day, after endless nights of crying, you suddenly feel nothing. No reaction, no tears, just quiet. That's not healing yet. That's survival. You're not cold. You're conserving what's left of your emotional energy. It's the body's natural way of saying, I can't feel this deeply anymore without falling apart. In psychology, detachment is not rejection of emotion. It's emotional self-preservation. It happens when your nervous system is flooded for too long from constant stress, heartbreak, or disappointment. When you're in a relationship that feels one-sided, or when love feels like walking on eggshells, your brain interprets that as danger. Your cortisol levels rise. Your body moves into a chronic state of alertness, fight, flight, or freeze. And when it stays there for too long, you don't just get tired, you burn out emotionally. That's when detachment happens. It's not a conscious decision like, I'll move on. It's more like your emotions go offline for maintenance. The philosopher Epictetus once said, we suffer not from the things themselves, but from our opinions about them. Detachment is when your mind begins to separate from the chaos of emotion, when you finally realize that holding on doesn't save love, it only destroys your peace. You stop clinging to the idea of what could have been and start seeing what is. And that's the beginning of freedom. Because here's a painful truth. You cannot heal in the same place that broke you. You cannot find peace in the same energy that drained you. You cannot be emotionally healthy if you're addicted to emotional chaos. But before you detach, you have to understand why you attached. From childhood, our brains learn that love equals safety. When your parents, friends, or early partners validated you, your brain linked love with security. So every time someone gives you attention or affection, dopamine floods your system. reinforcing the bond. Now here's the twist. When that connection starts to become inconsistent, when you're sometimes loved, sometimes ignored, your brain becomes addicted to the uncertainty. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, and it's the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. It's why you keep going back even when you know it's toxic. You're not addicted to the person, you're addicted to the hope that this time it will be different. So when they finally leave or grow distant, it's not just heartbreak, it's withdrawal. And detachment becomes the detox. Here's the truth most people avoid. You can't detach while still seeking closure from the person who broke you. Closure doesn't come from their apology, it comes from your understanding. Detachment begins when you stop making someone else the main character in your emotional story. At first, it hurts because it feels like losing control. But that pain is not destruction, it's detox. It's your system rebalancing from dependency to independence. Psychologically, detachment is the process of rewiring neural associations. When you resist checking their profile, when you stop texting, when you stop replaying scenarios, you weaken the neural pathways tied to that person. And within weeks or months, your emotional intensity towards them reduces. It's not that you forget, it's that you stop being triggered. But detachment isn't about cutting people off coldly or becoming heartless. It's about learning how to love without losing yourself. It's understanding that you can care for someone and still choose distance. You can love them deeply and still let them go because peace is more valuable than validation. And that right there is emotional maturity, not suppressing emotions, but mastering them. According to research from Stanford University, people who consciously practice cognitive reappraisal, reframing how they perceive emotional events, show higher resilience and faster emotional recovery. This means you can literally train your brain to detach faster by changing the narrative. Instead of saying, "They left me," you say, "They taught me what I don't want again." Instead of, "I'll never find someone like them," you say, "Thank God I won't." Every time you shift your thought, you weaken the emotional grip. Your neural network rewires from attachment to awareness. Buddhist philosophy calls this non-attachment. It doesn't mean rejection of love. It means loving without possession. It's saying, I can hold space for you without holding on to you. That's where emotional power lives, when you're capable of love, but not dependent on it. When your peace doesn't crumble with someone's absence. The real test of strength isn't how much you can hold on, it's how gracefully you can let go. If you've ever sat in your room, staring at your phone, waiting for that text that never came, you've already experienced detachment's first lesson. You learned that silence teaches you more about people than words ever could. And if you've ever stopped explaining your worth to someone, you've already detached more than you realize. Because detachment doesn't happen in one grand moment. It happens quietly, in the way you stop reacting, stop proving, stop chasing, and start observing. That's emotional evolution. If you've seen our video on how to stop overthinking, you'll know detachment and overthinking are deeply connected. Overthinking keeps you emotionally hooked. You replay what you could have said, what they could have done, what went wrong, and that loop keeps you tied to the pain. But when you detach, you break that cycle. Your brain finally stops looking for what if and accepts what is. So after this video, check that one out. The link's in the description. It'll show you how to stop your mind from becoming your emotional prison. When you start detaching, something beautiful happens. You begin to return to yourself. You start remembering who you were before you needed someone to complete you. You reconnect with the version of yourself that laughed freely, dreamed wildly, and didn't overanalyze every text. That's the rebirth detachment gives you. You realize that detachment isn't about losing emotions. It's about regaining control over them. It's about choosing peace over drama, solitude over chaos, clarity over confusion, and that is power. If this video made you stop and think, if it made you feel seen, then don't just scroll away. Hit subscribe, because here this space is for thinkers, feelers, and those who've loved too deeply. Like the video if it resonated, and drop a comment below. What's one thing or person you're learning to detach from right now?